All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you guys for coming out today. We really appreciate it. And the way we've been kicking these events off is we just start off with a little Q&A between you and I.
Okay.
And we film that for the folks that couldn't make it tonight.
Okay.
And then we turn you loose to talk to the people that came.
All right.
So Mr. Brian Abels running for Division D seat of the 21st JDC. First off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us your background and bio.
Okay. Well, I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 22 years. I have a practice here in Denham Springs, and I'm a partner in that law practice. And I have been a partner there since 2008, so for the last 11 years. My practice is mainly litigation, which means I'm in court a lot. I've handled cases all over the state, really, including here in the 21st Judicial District. I grew up in Springfield on the east end of Livingston Parish, and I'm a graduate of public schools in Livingston Parish, Springfield High School. Went on to LSU, got my undergraduate degree there after attending Southeastern for a little while, and then went on to LSU Law School. Got my law degree there in 1997, passed the bar the first time, thank goodness, and got licensed to practice in 97. Also licensed to practice in all federal courts in Louisiana, as well as the United States Supreme Court. I was licensed there in 2008. I have also served the last almost 10 years as a magistrate judge in Killian, handling their mayor's court, and I've served the last 4 years as magistrate judge in Springfield, handling their mayor's court as well. And for 3 years before that, I was their prosecutor. So I moved from prosecutor, and they appointed me, back in 2015 as their magistrate judge. Our firm and myself we have been very active in the community. I'm a graduate of Leadership Livingston 2014 and graduate of Leadership Tangipahoa in 2018. Involved in the chamber here for many years. I served on the board here for 9 years. I was chairman of the board in 2016, the flood year, and I served on the executive committee of the Livingston Parish Chamber for 5 years. Our business was the Small Business of the Year in 2011. I was Chamber Member of the Year in 2008, and then I served on that Greater Hammond Chamber of Commerce board until I had to resign to run for this post. So. That's a little bit of my background. I believe that my experience and my qualifications set me apart from my opponents in this particular race.
Okay. So the seat that you're running for, a lot of people are unfamiliar with the judicial side of our government. So what would a day in the life of what would a day in your life look like should you be elected? What would the day-to-day routine be like? Tell us a little bit about this seat.
Okay, so let me first start out by saying this is an open seat. This division, Division D, was Doug Hughes' seat. Judge Hughes was served on the bench, I believe, for 24 or 25 years. He was there for a very long time and did a very good job for us. And we're certainly going to miss him at the courthouse. But the thing I want to stress with that is this is an open seat. There is no incumbent. There's no sitting judge running in this race. We're all three attorneys, and of the attorneys, I have the most experience. So it is a general jurisdiction seat, so it is criminal and civil. Whoever's elected to this division will not handle any family law cases, or will not handle any juvenile cases. Those are separate divisions within our court. So a typical day is going to be hitting the bench, being prepared. Let's say on a civil day, you may have a docket where you're going to have several matters that need to be heard as far as motions that would be heard that morning. And again, it's 3 parishes. So the judges, the old term used to be ride the circuit. The judges go between each of the different parishes. So one day, one week you may be in Livingston, the next week in Amite, next week you may be in Greensburg. So you go between the 3, but on a civil day, say you may be hearing some motions that morning. There may be what we call final pretrial conferences for cases that are going to go to trial that week, that afternoon, or late morning. Some judges now are setting them at 11 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock like it used to always be done. There may be telephone status conferences where you're on the phone with attorneys in other cases to pick trial dates and to pick discovery cutoffs and to pick those types of things. And so that could be your typical day. jury trials, you're on the bench. You may be ruling on pretrial motions to start out the day. Then you're going through voir dire with the parties in jury selection, charging the jury, and then presiding over the trial once it starts. So your criminal days can be a little bit longer. Those depending on what exactly is on the docket for that particular day, they can be actually much longer. But that's your typical days going through the different as you go through the different parishes, 3 different parishes, and hear all of the different things that are on the docket for that day.
Sounds like a barrel of monkeys. So
it can keep judges here stay very busy because of the 3 parishes too.
yeah.
I've had folks come to me and say, why do some things take so long to move along? And so each judge only has a certain number of trial dates in each parish each year because they got to go to the other parishes. So that does sometimes make it a little bit longer for things to move through the process, just because if a trial is set, when is the next available trial date in Livingston? Well, it's not for another 6 months. So
Right.
that can stretch things out because the judges have to go to all 3 parishes.
Right. Yeah, I can see that taking a little time.
Definitely.
So, as you mentioned, there are 2 other people in the race.
Correct.
It's an open seat. So, aside from personal experience and issues of character, what do you think is the most important judicial principle or philosophical principle that people should keep in mind when casting their ballot?
That's a good question, and I think the answer would be to look at the candidates that are going to go into that courtroom and truly be unbiased, to look at the parties on each side, whether it's a criminal proceeding or a civil proceeding, and those folks that come in there. And remember, now this is probably one of the most important days in their life, because now they're in the system. They've either sued somebody, or they're being sued, or they are in the criminal justice system for whatever reason. So while it is a job for attorneys and judges, and they're there every day, those folks, so the people who aren't attorneys and aren't judges, aren't there every day. And the thing that people have come to me repeatedly over and over is treat everyone the same. Be impartial and be unbiased, which is what we're supposed to be.
Right.
And if somebody knows somebody on this side, but this person over here doesn't know somebody, as they say, shouldn't matter. Both should get the same treatment. Both should get equal treatment. And I think that's the most important thing. And it's the most important thing that people have come to me and told me, that's what we want to see in a judge. And it's what they should see in a judge. That's extremely important.
I suppose that's certainly what you would hope for whenever you're going before a judge.
It's the thing that people want to know when they walk in that courtroom. If they're a party to that, whatever type of proceeding it is, criminal or civil, they want to know they're going to get a fair shake.
Right.
And that they're going to all be treated the same.
Okay. So as you mentioned, Judge Hughes has been in this seat for 25 years. A lot's changed over the past 25 years. How has the role of judge changed over the past 25 years, and how do you think it will change over the next 25 years?
Well, and I've been practicing 22 years. So Judge Hughes had been on the bench for a few years when I started practicing back in '97. I'll tell you the thing that I've seen in my practice, particularly on the civil side, cost. What it costs to litigate cases now is very, very high. Especially if it's a big case and you have to bring in experts. Experts are very expensive, and there's attorneys to pay, and our filing fees have gone up. Now, we have a new courthouse here, so that's one reason our filing fees have gone up, and it's a very nice courthouse, and it was much, much, much needed. So I don't have an issue with that, but I think that through the years, that's one of the things that's really changed a lot. Everything has become more expensive, and I think now when you have someone like me who's done so much litigation, I recognize that. So what do you want? You want a judge that's going to be efficient, that's going to make rulings promptly, that can cut out a lot of things that are going to waste time and really cost the parties more money may make it harder to resolve certain matters or certain cases before they go to trial because there's been more money spent and things of that nature. That's one of the things. The other thing here in the 21st JDC that's been a change and I think is very important is we created that family court division. So now there's 2 judges that all they do is family court stuff. And before, all the judges handled everything. They handled criminal and civil and family. And our dockets, whenever you went in to a court and maybe you had just maybe a hearing that was going to take 10 or 15 minutes, you could be there all day because there were so many things on the docket at that time. I think pulling all that family stuff out and putting it in one division, creating a separate juvenile division, I think that has really helped our court system here really become more efficient over the last few years.
Okay.
Definitely.
And that's something, do you think that will continue over the next 25 years?
I think
those efficiencies?
I think so. So in federal court system, everything's e-filed. You know, you don't, if you bring them paper, they'll bring it back or they'll give it back to you. So everything's e-filed and it keeps costs down, obviously makes things much quicker and efficient. You have to learn the system, but once you learn it, everything kind of really moves quickly. Our Louisiana Supreme Court has gone to e-filing, so that when you've got these huge briefs that you have to file, now it can all be e-filed. Our courts of appeal are now e-filed. I think eventually we have 40 district courts around the state. Lafayette just put in e-filing, and there's another one that did as well. And I think Tangipahoa has e-recording, where you can record if you sell a piece of property, you need to go record that act of sale. I think you can do that now electronically there. I've been told by the end of the year, Livingston will have e-filing.
Okay.
So I think that that's going to change a lot. It's going to make things much more efficient. Should be able to, I don't know what the cost is of those systems, but hopefully we'd be able to maybe reduce some of the cost of litigation and handling those matters. But I think that that's the way we're going to go. It's going to keep going towards where maybe even our court system, if we can believe it, may be paperless or pretty doggone close.
Well,
So,
as a small business owner, I can attest to the less paper you have to deal with, the easier it is, and the more cost effective it is. So,
well, and I think that our courtrooms, I know one has been updated in Tangipahoa, and I think here they've left in Livingston. They've left the courtrooms the way they're set up, I should say, to where there can be maybe more electronics being used, maybe more things like Elmos, like they have in Baton Rouge, where you can put exhibits, just paper exhibits, and have them pop up on the TV screen for the jury and the witness and the judge, and everybody can see it. And so we've got some ways to go in technology in our courthouses here in the 21st. So I think we're going to see a lot more progress, though, in that end as well.
Well, awesome. Well, getting to the issue of criminal justice reform that's been kicked around the state legislature over the past few years. In your experience, what would be one criminal justice reform measure that you would want to encourage the legislature to possibly take up?
Well, I think that there are certain times, we have a drug court here, and it's very successful. And I think there are certain times with certain people, not always, because you have repeat offenders. But I think there may be times when we can look at maybe treatment programs as opposed to, in certain cases, as opposed to maybe long-term prison sentences. And that may be something that can help our prison population.
Sure.
Also help folks who need treatment, and that's what they need is treatment, as opposed to a prison sentence. Now, that being said, we have people who come into the system, unfortunately, over and over and over and over again, and that's not who I'm talking about.
Right.
And you also have to weigh, is this person a danger? Is this person, does this person pose a danger to society? Because we have to weigh that person's rights against the rights of society to be safe. So those aren't the folks I'm talking about. But I do think that there are limited circumstances that can be crafted out where maybe if it's a mental health issue, Sure. Or something along those lines, where maybe we can look at a treatment option, and it may be incarceration and treatment. It may be other things. So those are some things that we can look at.
Yeah, and those are certainly issues that sort of blur the lines with mental health issues and addiction issues.
Sure.
That are certainly we've yet to figure out for sure. So.
Right.
Another question I had for you is, away from the courtroom, what do you think is the role of a judge in the community?
Oh, well, I think we all have a duty and obligation to give back to our communities. Our law firm has done that here in town. We've supported the school systems. I've done that personally, as far as my time on the chamber board, my time on the executive committee, my time as board chairman, giving back to my church. I've served on several committees at Hebron Baptist Church through the years. Again, our law firm, we support our school system, not just here in Denham, but we support schools throughout Livingston Parish, and we have done so for a long time. And I do think, as elected officials, or hopefully an elected official, we do have a duty to give back to our community. And judges, there are certain things judges cannot do, that they're prohibited from doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that to the extent that they can serve on nonprofit boards or things of that nature, particularly things that are tied into the judicial system or the criminal justice system, where we can come in and make a difference, hopefully out in the communities, make a difference in people's lives. I think we have a duty to do those things. I think there is that there, and not just to be, well, now I'm elected, you never see me again.
Yeah.
That's not the way it should be. It should never
Right.
be that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much to be done, so much volunteer work, so much community effort, so much meet and greet, and just making your face available so that people know who you are.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
So something I've been asking everybody that comes through is to kind of comment a little bit on the effort that's kind of stirring around with the attempt of trying to call a new new constitutional convention. With that being something that's a lot of people are throwing a lot of money behind, it's certainly something that could throw everything up into the air.
Right.
In that eventuality, if that were to happen, what do you think about how judges should be selected? Do you think they should be appointed, or do you think they should still be elected?
That's a good question as well. I don't know what the procedure is being thrown out exactly for the appointment of judges. I would hope that if it ever went to that the governor or whoever's given the power to appoint would have an advisory board made up of attorneys, of people in the system, to help them through that process. Because I think you run into, let me put it this way, I'm always hesitant to take power out of the people's hands directly and give it to some government official to appoint who they want. Now, not to say they wouldn't do a good job, and not to say that perhaps the best qualified people wouldn't be appointed, but now we've taken that away from the people directly to elect locally who is going to be their judges and be really the ones making decisions that affect the lives of the local people in that area. And I'm always hesitant to get behind that. There may be a system we can come up with for appointments that I would feel comfortable with and comfortable with supporting.
Sure.
But I think the elections we have, and I also think the terms are important. So district court judges serve for 6 years. Appellate court and state Supreme Court justices and appellate court judges serve for 10 years. So it does give them some insulation from being persuaded, which I think is always the concern with elections, that whoever gives money, that's who's going to persuade the judge. I think having those longer terms actually helps the judges become insulated from some of that persuasion. So I would say we need to stay with elected judges. Not to say there's not an appointment system that may be proper or maybe a very good system, but that causes me some concern.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got one last question for you, and
Okay.
it comes straight off of the Cavalier House Books job application.
Okay.
So, give us 2 different books that have most influenced your life. One fiction and one nonfiction.
Well, I used to read a lot. When I was a kid, I read so many books and so many different things in different areas that I read, and I loved it. I grew up loving reading, and that's why, probably one of the reasons why I went to law school, is because I did love it so much. Law school kind of hampered that for me a little bit because we read so much in law school that by the time those 3 years were over, I didn't want to read anything I didn't have to read. I've kind of gotten back into it a little bit now. A lot of audio books now.
Sure.
When I'm traveling, either in my truck or if I'm traveling out of state or something like that. I would say one book definitely that's influenced my life, I guess more than any other, is the Bible. I consider myself a born-again Christian, and that book certainly, as the book of my faith, has influenced me more than any other book. You know, a fiction book, I don't know. That's a really tough question. You know, one thing that I can remember me reading as a kid more than anything else, there used to be a series, and I don't know if they're still out there somewhere or not. It's called Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators. It was an Alfred Hitchcock series, and it was all these little mysteries, and it was these kids who were the three investigators, and they asked tons of questions. And I think that was one of the things, because they were almost like attorneys in the way they asked questions, and they had one that was a kind of a brain, and one was kind of the science kid, and the other was kind of the athletic one, you know. And I read, I think, every one in the series. I enjoyed them so much because of the mystery part of it. I really liked, and then kind of figuring it out, asking the questions and figuring it out. So probably that whole series, you know. And I would say definitely, again, the Bible, my book of faith, is definitely influenced me more than any other book.
Oh, fantastic! Well, if that's not a PSA for child literacy, I don't know what is. Well, I thank you so much for coming out and talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'll let you mingle with everybody and let these folks ask their questions.
Okay.
Thanks.